everyone. Welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. My name is Justin, and this is...
This is Derek. How are you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing okay. This week kind of feels like it went a little slower, but that's all right. I don't mind slow weeks. You?
It's been, I don't know, I guess an average week. I know I told you before we started recording that I'm kind of getting over a cold, so I think I sound fine, but earlier this week I sounded pretty terrible, so.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you sound fine to me. I'm glad that you're feeling better.
Been drinking an emergency about every day and a couple days of some Mucinex and that type of stuff. So I got her kicked now.
Got it kicked. Good. Yeah, I guess. Really shitty intro.
Well, I've been kind of thinking about this, so I'm just we'll throw this out now. I want to make sure we give another shout out to our patron Jan. Jan, I'm going to bestow a name upon you. You'll be the picker of pies.
The picker of pies.
Yep, Jan, the picker of pies.
All right. What story? Is there a story behind picker of pies? Just those are the two words that you decided to combine?
Well, he picked the pie that one of us is going to get hit in the face with.
No, he picked the pie that you're going to get hit in the face with.
Well, we're going to remember this when it doesn't work out the way you think.
Yeah, I'm sure that one of us is going to be eating their words along with some pie. So, yeah, we'll have to make sure that we get a nice video of that to share.
For sure. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it will be fun. But yeah, I guess what do you say? Should we kick off chapter 7 here? Our 9th episode of this book so far.
9th episode of this book. 30, I think we talked about this and I forgot already. 38th episode total.
38. So yes, after we get this episode that we are currently recording uploaded, we will have 38 in the bank.
Nice.
Yeah. So Derek and I, before we started recording, we're talking about maybe doing something special for our 50th episode, which should align with our year anniversary of doing this. So audience out there,
be close.
Yeah. Right. Like maybe plus maybe a week or two, plus or minus.
Right.
Yeah. But if the audience has any suggestions on something cool that we could do, we would love to hear that.
Anything. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's such thing as a bad idea. So
that's fair. But yeah, I guess you want to lead us in this epigraph here, sir?
I can do that. This epigraph I really like. It is 5 words, 1 sentence. Yeah, I just really like it. This epigraph for chapter 7, death shall be my bridge. And that is a Toblakai saying. I'm not really sure what that means. I mean, I guess I can think like death is like you're crossing over a bridge, sure, but I guess like trying to think of how that relates to the chapter. I don't think we talked about the Toblakai in this chapter at all.
No, not at all. We haven't seen them for a couple of chapters now, but I think like thinking about that particular phrase, I mean, a bridge is something you cross, right? Not everybody is going to cross it with, confidence or even daring to cross it. Some might hesitate before they start or get there. I feel like that encompasses death, which, if you think about it, kind of is littered throughout this chapter.
That it is.
Just my 2 cents.
But yeah, I really like that one.
Yeah, I like that too.
Not quite a motivational quote, but just I think it's kind of one of those lines from the book that'll probably stick with me for a while.
Yeah, I can see maybe forming some like artwork around that line. I feel like I could probably come up with something. At least in my head canon, I can. Whether I can translate it, who knows?
You can try.
Yeah, I could try.
It'll probably look good too.
Yeah, I got to get back into the art thing. Been struggling, but yeah, are you ready to kick off this first section here?
Yeah, take it away.
All right, I really like this section. It just comparatively after the last episode, it just brought things nicely, kind of back down that roller coaster, so to speak. But the suspense of the ride is still there. But anyway, South of Hisar, as far as I could see, were mounds of bodies littered across the plain. The sergeant stood in front of Duiker, as silent as the rest of his men, as he took in the scene that was the Vintil Basin. The battle would become known as Batrol, due to that being the name of the closest city. Duiker states to the sergeant and company that the beast had fangs. The piles of body were Hisari. Cape moths fluttered over the scene. The stink of sorcery hung in the air. Somewhere to the southwest was the Seventh, and the Wiccans, and tens of thousands of Malazan refugees. The danger remained, though, as the army of the apocalypse was regrouping. The Mela Oasis was where the Sialk reinforcements and late-coming desert tribes were waiting. When they renew their pursuit, they would still outnumber Coltane. One of the sergeant's men came back from scouting and reported that Kamist Rouleau still lives, and that a high mage from the north brings a new army. All the sergeant says is that they will meet them at the Mela Oasis. Duiker confidently tells them that he will not be joining them, as he is certain he will find his nephew's body amongst the dead. Challenging the gaze of the sergeant, Duiker tells him to go. Duiker watched as the sergeant and company rode westward. The historian rode out into the battlefield. In the distance, he saw two figures riding westward. They had gone out of sight by the time that Duiker reached a low ridge. On the dusty ground, he observed tracks from at least 9 or 10 wagons, cows, and 20 of Malazan refugees. Duiker has a thought to himself as to how Coltane was able to defend all of this. It was simple enough to follow Coltane's trail. It led southwest, away from the coast, into the Sialk Oden. 60 leagues was a town called Keron Tepsi. Coltane would try to provide refuge for the Malazans there. Keron Tepsi had a fist there, and it was possible that the fist managed to squash the rebellion there. Duiker could see a few issues, though. Crossing the Sialk Odan could take months. Hostile clans of the Titan occupying the steppes in between, and not to mention that Kamist Rouleau's rebellion was in pursuit. There were few places for water, and during a dry season especially, the need for water made Coltane's move predictable to his pursuers, and a trek across the desert like this was an act of desperation, just pure madness. It was clear that Coltane was leading the column to Dryge Spring. Despite their head start, it was likely that Duiker would regroup with the army before reaching the spring. Duiker rode on, following the trail. He passed the occasional body of a refugee or a soldier that had been wounded during battle. An hour before dusk, he saw a dust cloud appear a half-league inland. Tithon horse warriors were racing toward Dryge Spring. There would be no peace for Coltane and his people. In a moment of contemplation, he thinks he could kill his horse to try and reach Coltane before the Tithon, but all it would be a warning. He thinks to himself that Coltane has to know, because he once rode as a renegade chieftain. Duiker kept his horse at a steady trot. With the last of the night, he managed a glance behind him and saw a grainy cloud. Cape moths making their way from Hisar to the scent of blood. In that cloud, he could have sworn he saw a face, but Hood had no reason to manifest himself. He wasn't a melodramatic god. Duiker's imaginings were a product of fear, and he knew it. He kicked his horse into a canter and focused on the darkness ahead.
It's a pretty good opening section.
Yeah, and it just, I think that like what I'm digging, and I'll probably repeat this for every fucking episode, but I just really love the fucking cinematic feel that it has, and it's just, everything from everything that we read last chapter and all of the rebellion and the slaughtering. It's kind of nice to have a little bit of downtime, but like after that, like things are kind of capping off from all of that and new things are starting to develop from it. So it's just kind of cool to see everything lead up to something and then split apart into God knows where at the moment,
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of hard to say it's coming down. I mean, yeah, this isn't action packed in this section, but you're seeing the aftermath of it and just how bloody it was, how bad it was, and in kind of the way it wasn't supposed to go, really.
Right. Yeah. And I didn't mean like as far as like the book or the events, just kind of like for that particular event, just the rebellion.
Oh,
Like
sure.
I guess as far as we can tell, the main act of the rebellion, where the soldiers of the apocalypse have taken over from the Malazans and have pushed them out of what seems like cities all over 7 cities. So
Yeah, to me, it almost kind of feels like a continuation of where he's investigating the city and kind of piecing things together. And he drew his conclusions, and I really like, was it last chapter, maybe the one before, but where he's talking about the boar having, one last hurrah in it. Sorry if I'm taking your talking point here, but
no, I
now he he had this idea that they might surprise them, and they did.
right.
Just kind of reaffirming what he was piecing together was correct.
Yeah. And another thing that I thought, and I'll add on to that, but another thing that I thought was cool is, the beginning of this chapter, and again, I didn't do a very good job of summarizing as far as landmarks go, but at the very, as the chapter unveils, there's a lot of descriptions as to where Duiker is specifically, and with the Batral, the basin where that particular battle where Coltane stood up to the Hisari is on the map in the book. I think it's like the second page. So it was really cool to kind of like, okay, here's Hisar, they're southwest of it. And so like you can just kind of imagine like where Coltane is going, and you can kind of almost predict, where things are headed. So I thought that was cool, that you're able to kind of like get a sense of what's happening as far as the map.
Oh, and I looked it up as you were talking there, because 60 leagues, like that term and distance didn't mean anything to me, but that's 180 miles.
Oh Jesus. Yeah, and they're all on foot. And Duker makes a great point. And I just love the way that we get a sense of just how smart he is. Like he again is able to piece together what is happening, And that's just because he knows from Coltane's perspective that if if you're gonna cross this fucking desert, you gotta find water. And especially for all of these people, but the enemy knows that as well. So yeah, it's super tense. It's super tense already because you don't know what's gonna happen. Like it already seems that Duiker is observing these Tithan horse warriors that live within these lands starting to chase Coltane essentially.
I feel like this is a good spot for my famous quote here. That is not read and find out. Do you remember what my other one is, Justin?
Oh fuck no. I don't remember.
I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you don't use that one as much.
So far, mostly just with Fellison.
Yeah. Yeah. But going back to your the boar head fangs or the beast head fangs comment that he made in the last one, as well as kind of talking at the beginning of this section, I just love how Duiker is continuing to like deceive the sergeant right now. And you get a good sense with that line that he says. And then immediately after that, there's this thought of praise for Coltane. And to me, or us as readers, like maybe I'm speaking on behalf of readers, but at least for me, it's an interesting dilemma that I find myself in, because a part of me wants to root for the rebellion because, putting it to Olacine, but on the other hand, there really aren't many established characters or prominent characters from the rebellion side, Derek, but rather the Malazan side are the more established characters that you end up liking. So
What do
there's
you? I'm not sure what you're going for here.
do you remember my point about Dryjana not being a very established, or Shaik being an established
Uh,
character? That's kind of what I'm poking at. I mean,
gotcha.
I don't know if I could
Okay.
have baked it any better for you.
I didn't get it.
But
Sorry, you had to spell it out for me.
it's all good. It's all good. Maybe we'll make an alphabet pie.
Yeah,
I
put the
just
letters in your bowl of soup.
Yeah, it's just that stark contrast just really had, it I found myself like, okay, who am I really like wanting to win here? You know what I mean? Like it's just I want to see Lucine go. But on the other hand, Like, I feel a little bit bad for these Malazans. Like, they don't have any choice in what Lucine is doing either.
Yeah, but I guess at the same token, I mean, we have some Malazan characters that are established, and they want Lacine gone too. So like the mass of the Malazans are kind of like the people of the Seven Cities. There's not really any or many established characters there, right? So I don't know. I find myself more rooting for the Malazans. I think the like the characters that we know, I should say,
That's fair.
not
Yeah,
necessarily the people as a whole. Like you said, I mean, they're just trying to live their life.
right.
You know, I'm sure there's probably some dickheads, but there's with any group of people, so that's nothing new.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I would agree that when it comes to like the Malazan established characters, I'm definitely siding with them over anybody else, and that's simply to get old Lucien. But it's just hard because, these are just a means to an end, all of this chaos. So it's just like that's the part that I feel bad about is the stuff that our established characters have really no control over. Here's the other thing that I thought was as far as the stink of sorcery that Duiker could kind of sense in the air. I'm wondering if this was Sormo Enoth battling either God, what's his name? Rolo.
Relo,
Rolo, yeah. If this was battling, if Sormo Enoth was battling Rolo or some other type of high mage, that seems to make the most sense to me. From what I understand, he's the only one on the Wiccans that can wield sorcery, right?
I guess, yeah, probably as far as we know. I guess I didn't even think of that. I just kind of thought it was a one-sided affair. That I mean, that's how I read it. It was just Relo just raining magic down, I guess. But you got a good point.
Yeah, my guess is that being that Sormo is some type of reincarnated elder warlock, that this is why that scout that came back informed the sergeant that Comist Relo still lives, is because I would imagine he got out sorceried. And this is how the Coltane was able to, the beast had fangs, so to speak.
Or at least part of it. I mean, I after reading this, I kind of got the sense that, or I at least related Coltane and his warriors to like Spartans, I guess.
Yeah,
You know, just they're like fucking badass, and they might all die, but they're not surrendering. Like they're gonna fight to the end.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It just after the sergeant and the rebellion, that army leaves Duiker, and I didn't summarize it, but you get a good sense of feeling alone, kind of right alongside Duiker. Like as soon as that company leaves, like it's just Duiker, and he's headstrong into finding Coltane, or at least catching up to the Coltane train, the Cole train. But I
Isn't that a
couldn't.
Gears? That's a Gears of War reference, isn't it?
I don't know. I've never played Gears of War.
Oh, that's right, because you're a stupid PlayStation player.
You stupid Xbox player. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
and we
Another thing we
work
differ on.
well, huh?
And I what?
You say we work well together.
Opposites attract.
It's all good. I could care less about video games. I play
Yeah, I know.
four of them. So, yeah. And they're usually always the story-based ones, I'm not really a fan of anything else. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I could imagine myself just walking through, all this death and destruction and just seeing the sheer brutality of it all, surrounded by death's bridge, right? And, just observing these creatures and animals that are feeding off the dead. It just like knowing that you're all by yourself out there, surrounded by all the dead, and just the animals eating off the dead. It really gives you a sense of just alone, and I just love the way that was captured in the book.
Yeah, to me, it almost feels a little bit like survivor's guilt. I mean, he wasn't there for the fight. Just being, yeah, it would be, I guess, humbling would probably be the word that comes to mind. To walk through something like that. And we know this isn't the first time he's been through it, and he's desensitized to it now. But yeah, I mean, you can see it still affects him. It's not like it's an easy thing to do. He's just shrugging off.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the section, he has this like image of some type of face. I kind of imagine like the mummy, the mummy in the sand or the
Oh
water.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like
yeah,
in this cloud behind him. So it, and he admits that he's scared. It's purely just a product of his imagination. But you take the fact that he's by himself in the middle of like hostile territory with all of the dead around, and he's scared as fuck. I'd be scared as fuck.
yeah. I mean, you'd be foolish not to be.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was a big fan of the way that this chapter opened. I really liked this section. So I can just
Well,
imagine.
yeah, because I remember texting you. I was like, "Holy shit!" And you're like, "What?" And I was just like, "The way this is written," and you're like, "I think you thought like we got confirmation as far as
The
the
pie thing.
pie bit went, but no, it wasn't that. It was just like, holy cow, damn." I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, it's overwhelming, and I feel like I'm struggling to talk about just the sheer scope of everything that's happened so far. But it's the rebellion. I mean, it's not over, but the part where they take back the city, has at least for the meantime been accomplished throughout the continent, and so now it's just like, where is this aftermath going?
Yeah, he's do you think? I wonder if he's going to catch up to him before the next encounter, or if he's going to see a similar scene to what he's just gone through.
Well, as you always say,
What do I say, Justin?
it gets worse before it can get better.
Nicely done.
You thought I was going to tell you Raffo.
I did. 100%.
Voodoo.
That was a
But
good one.
yeah, good. But yeah, I guess I don't really have anything else to add on to this very beautifully written scene.
Yeah, no, I think it was a good conversation for sure.
Yeah, but I guess
Well,
with that, do you want to take off this next one?
sure. Fellison looked on from the top of a low rise, looking out at the basin below as hundreds of thousands of beetles all moved in unison, somewhere. Heberick, being as curious as a cat, had to find out where they were going. It had been 20 minutes since he left. Bowden was next to her as they waited. She could tell he was uneasy, but she decided she wouldn't be the first to speak. While she waited in silence, she thought maybe Heberick was a liability. The swelling from the blood flies had receded some. She could see and hear better. She felt like the poison had left something deeper. She had dreams that she was carried by a river of blood. Heberick had returned from over the hill. She thought she had her own two monsters. She could write her own tales to frighten children with her two companions. Heberick mumbled how extraordinary the beetles were. Bowden asked if they could easily get around them. Heberick said yes. They were only going to the next basin. Felsen didn't understand why he was so interested in that fact. He said tomorrow night, like them, they will continue west. Like them, eventually they will reach the sea. Bowden asked if they would swim then. Heberick thought not, and that they would most likely turn around and head east, but he really had no idea. Fellison thought of her last night with Benneth and the flies circling the rim of his goblet, the fly king of Skullcap. She thought Bowden left him there, and that's why he won't look her in the eye, and she thought one day he would pay. Heberick told them to follow him. He had energy now, but it would soon fade like it had every other night, and he would fall behind. Even though the desert was mostly devoid of life, water could be found. They had enough food for 12 days, two more than was necessary to reach the coast, but each night they made less distance. Hood's most patient servant was time, and each night, as they fell further and further behind, they came closer and closer to the point of giving up. Fellison thought that you cannot walk to Hood's gate, but that it appears before you when the fog clears. Heberick asked what Fellison thought. She replied that they live in a cloud all their lives. Bowden said that was the Durhang talking. Heberick told Bowden he didn't know he was so droll, and Bowden went silent. Heberick recalled that Bowden didn't do well being mocked, and he apologized and said he took exception to what Fellison said, and in turn took it out on him, and that he appreciated the joke even if it was accidental. Fellison said to give it up, and that even a mule comes out of its sulking mood. You just can't force it. Heberick retorted that the swelling had left her tongue, but there was still poison there. The remark made Fellison flinch, and she wanted to tell him how right he was. Since the night they escaped, they had seen no one else. This made Fellison realize that, really, their escape didn't affect anything, and that made her feel small, just a grain of sand in a storm bigger than they could comprehend. Even so, she felt worried. If the uprising reached the mainland, they may get to the coast only to die there, waiting for a boat that never arrives. They saw something in the dunes, 50 or so paces ahead. some sort of column, but as they got closer, they could see it was only bent. But they also realized that they were not as close as they thought, more like 500 paces. When they finally reached the monstrosity, they began setting up camp. This thing was fucking huge. 50 men holding hands in a circle could not reach all the way around, and the bend was 7 or 8 man lengths up. Fellison asked if it was the biggest pillar they'd ever seen. Heberick says there's one in Aaron, or so he's heard, that is 20 men high. Bowden says he's seen it, says it's not as wide, maybe taller though, and asks what this one is made of. Heberick says jade. They realized this wasn't a column, it was a finger.
Damn. And so the tension begins. Like,
Yeah, I don't understand Fellison's like bitterness. Well, she just and we'll get more of this later, but yeah, you're right. It definitely starts here. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I kind of interrupted you there.
no, I mean, I didn't really have anything else to say after that. So you chimed in very nicely there.
Oh. Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
It just,
Um,
and we'll see this continue, as you said, over the next couple of sections. And, we can elaborate on that bitterness as we go through those sections. But I guess just in here, it's just, to me, what's baffling is it's so quick. Her bitterness is just immediately saw. Like that almost kind of trumps what anything else is happening in this section. Like, was there a point to the Beatles, outside of just them being a way of knowing that they're headed in the right direction? Because Heberick thinks that they're headed to the sea, and then we'll just turn around and go to the opposite coast, But you almost kind of forget about that because you're so enthralled with Felizin and her emotions.
yeah, and I really thought it was interesting. She's got this comment about her traveling companions, or I can't remember exactly how she worded it, but she's got her own monsters that she's traveling with, and she could write her own tales to frighten children. But really, she doesn't even need the other two. I mean, her own actions and attitudes and trials that she's been through, tests, lessons, lessons learned would probably be more than enough to scare 99.9% of the kids out there. Maybe not the kid that starved to death and lost his family. He went through some shit, but probably a lot of the other kids, or at least I guess in the real world, I could say that in the real world. Yeah,
Well,
most kids would probably look past the traveling companions.
do you think that this, and now that I'm thinking about it as you're explaining it, do you think that this has something to do with the majority of her life has been spent in nobility? So do you think that she's, creating or devising these monsters, Heberick and Bowden, based on their appearance to cater towards nobility children? Like, if you think about it, right? Like, would this be something that would be used to scare children of the nobility? Children outside of the nobility, they see some shit every day. So
Yeah,
would this be scary for them?
I mean, probably. I mean, I feel like I guess if a young enough kid saw somebody without hands, they're gonna have questions, and that might scare them. Well, what happened to his hands? How did he lose his hands? And then you got this other guy who's just from what we've seen, he's capable of brutal murders.
Yeah, right.
And if you tell a kid, oh, well, he ripped a lady's head off, that's probably gonna scare some kids.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's fair. Okay. It was just a thought I had as you were talking about it. And when you were saying lessons learned, I just go back to, she's been brought up with a silver spoon in her mouth. So like what does she really know about the real world? And she's already making these jabs at Bowden and Heberick based on their appearance and using them as inspiration for a scary book, There's
Right.
yeah. So
Another thought I've kind of had here is this dream that she's having of the river of blood is I'm wondering if that's not, she said she wants to see the blood pour out of Tavor's veins, but I'm wondering if it's not going to be just the blood pouring out of her. I
I
don't
think
know
so
if that
too.
resonated with you at all.
It does. It reminds me of your theory, which I think in one of my sections, she goes a little bit deeper into the river of blood, and I think that it may be better talked about then.
I didn't have a whole lot to go on with it, but it definitely makes me think of that.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Absolutely. And it's interesting that, you've got this sudden bitterness, and then all of a sudden you have the beginning of what we know are dreams of the river of blood. So I wonder if if they coincide with each other in some way, shape, or form. I mean, that's just me though. She could have been having these dreams for a lot longer. They may not have specifically arose post escape, but that's just how I'm interpreting it.
Yeah.
But she definitely has some bitterness towards Bowden, and a little bit towards Hebrick at the moment. And I think it's sad because her bitterness is simply just because she is expecting that all of the food and the water, her rations, get left for her. So she's got this thought that, well, Hebrick's just a liability now. So let's just kill him and we could share his rations. She's only thinking of
I think
herself.
that was from your section later on, but
Yeah,
it's okay.
It's all good. We'll get there. We could talk about it again, but
yeah, true.
But it starts to sprinkle in here because I mean, why else would Hebrick be a liability?
Well, yeah, he's slowing down. He's slowing them down, and that's
Right.
the liability. Like if they're not going to get there, it's going to be because of him.
Right. So Felsen, in my point of view, is just like, well, let's just get it over with so that we have the ability to survive.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah. So I think there's just a lot of things with her starting, at least for us and the reader, in this particular section.
Yeah. Dude, what the fuck is this giant finger?
It's been racking my brain ever since I've read it. I'm like, is it a giant, like an undead giant? Is it a statue? I mean,
yeah. How much is there? Is it just a hand? Is there an arm buried under there? Is there a whole freaking thing that's 300 feet tall? I mean, questions.
Right.
And we get no answers yet.
Well, we know it's made of jade. That much we know. But
it doesn't really reveal anything, I don't think.
No, I feel like that's the first time jade has really been introduced in this series so far. At least I can't recall anything else that had been mentioned with jade.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So yeah, I have three options. It's either like a giant, some type of buried giant, a god, or a statue. A statue relating to the history of the seven cities, which that's more or less what I'm leaning towards, just based on everything that we know about the theme so far in this book.
I guess we'll just have to read and find out and hope it's something that's revealed and not just something that's brought up like, hey, this is fucking cool, and then we never see it again.
Well, I guess I associate it to the Wheel of Time in The Dragon Reborn when he comes across that big statue outside of Cairhien, after he comes out of the portal stone and he stumbles the Kotal Khan.
Oh, okay, yeah, been a bit.
So that's immediately what I'm reminded of so far, is just because this large statue just appears out of nowhere, buried in the sand or in the earth. So are they directly similar? No, but that's just kind of what I was reminded of. Was just so I don't know if we'll get any type of payoff within this book, but I definitely feel like it's there for a purpose. So
I think so too. I mean, it's just too bizarre of a thing to just be like sprinkling it there and forgetting about it.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess outside of those things, I don't really have much to say as far as this section is concerned.
I don't think so either. I think we see some bitterness bubbling up and some cool scenery.
Yeah. All right. Dawn approached, and more details were seen on the finger. A ridge in the sand directly beneath it revealed another finger. Finger to hand, hand to arm, arm to body. It made sense from a logical point of view, but to Felazin, it seemed impossible that this could exist or even been fashioned. Felazin watched Hebrick clutching his stump that had touched the finger. She noticed that Hebrick's tattoos had become sharper somehow. Bowden started pitching 2 cents, tense. Within the shadow of the finger, he acted as if the finger wasn't even there. An orange tint spread throughout the air as the day went on. Felazin had seen this before, but never as saturated as it was now. Hebrick finally rouses and sniffs the air. Cursing Hood's name, he explains that there has been a storm and that it was Otateril dust. Bowden stops pitching the second tent and notices that the dust was settling on his shoulders and hands. Bowden explains that they should all get inside their tents. Fellowson has an issue with this and retorts that they've worked around the stuff without an issue. Heber counters this by explaining that they had the ability to wash themselves afterwards. Fellowson again retorts this right back and tells Hebrick that he's not thinking right, because if washing removed the effect, then why did mages still go mad? Hebrick snaps and tells her to sit there then, and then ducks into his tent. Fellowson spares a glance at Bowden, who simply just shrugs. Sighing, she admits to herself that she is exhausted but not sleepy. Bowden tells her that she's best get inside her tent. She tells him that she is not sleepy. Swiftly, like a cat, Bowden stepped closer. He tells her he does not give a fuck. If she doesn't sleep and stays out here, she will dry up, thus taking more of her fair share of water. Meaning, get in the fucking tent. Fellowson gets pissed at this and tells Bowden that he would dare not if Beneth was there. Bowden, snarling, tells her that Beneth is dead and would take his rotten soul to the deepest pit. Fellowson sneers and tells him that he's suddenly brave now because he wouldn't have dared stand up against Beneth before. Taking a moment to study her, he smiles slyly and tells her that maybe he did. He says nothing more and heads to his tent and gets in. Fellowson felt cold, and her thoughts of Bowden were not good. Eventually, she entered her tent, unfurling her bedroll and laying down. She wished she had some Durhang or wine, because she was unable to fall asleep. She then starts to think about the crimson river of blood in her dreams. So, the whole tattoo's becoming sharper. Her noticing that. I wonder if this has something to do with the stump that touched the jade finger.
I think there's definitely, got to be correlation there.
Or is it the Otatero dust? Because Hebrick is a mage of some kind, is he not? No, because he would have used a warren a long time ago. But
well,
I wonder
if it's the Otatero dust. I guess.
We know.
I don't know because I go ahead. Go ahead. I'm trying to form my thought here. I'm not sure exactly what I want to say. So.
Well, whether Fellowson again is being a whiny bitch here because we know from Ralik Nam that Otatero dust does have an effect on non-mage or just on regular people, right? Like you remember at the end of Guardians of the Moon? Yeah. So is this... I think I have a theory and we'll get to that. So let's hold off unless you have further thoughts. Because now that I'm thinking through it, I think I might know what's happening.
So my thought was I did not remember until I read this chapter a second time, or I didn't connect the dots, I guess. But the second time I read it, I was like, oh shit, Ralik put this stuff on him. He put the dust on him, and then like he could stop magic, or the magic arrow, like it stopped. But yeah, I guess I felt like he had like a bag of it, so I thought like, oh well, like that. Okay, well, that stuff was probably like super concentrated. Like they're just getting like a few speckles. It's like, oh, there's a few snowflakes out here. I guess I was buying into what Fellowson was saying, like, well, we've been around this stuff, before and it's not been a big deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess, are you thinking like with his skin turning black, like it's his skin dying or something?
Yeah. And I feel like this may be something that happens later on in this chapter. I think you might get where I'm coming with this. But I feel like this might be the reason why, or part of the reason why those events happen.
Okay, sure.
Possibility. Who knows? It's all just speculation again. But yeah, you know me. This is what I like to do.
Yeah. No, and I love it. I love hearing it.
Cool. Yeah, I just, again, more of the bitterness kind of coming out. Fellowson is obviously pissed about Beneth, and I feel like the hard part about this for us and our readers is that we know that Beneth is a worthless piece of shit. I think deep down she knows that he's a worthless piece of shit, and he should, as Bowden said, rot in the deepest, darkest pit of Hood's gate, right? Or in Hood's realm. But I think that it's just kind of like that domestic abuse instinct to stay. You know what I mean? Like, I still think that she hasn't worked through that. And the fact that, like, she doesn't need him, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get that. I was wondering if you were thinking, so, she's telling Bowden, oh, you wouldn't stand up to him if he was here and all this and that. And then he just has a smile and says maybe he did. Like, I feel like he's telling her that he killed Benneth.
Yeah, maybe they got into some type of altercation, and
Well, because he went to go find him. I don't know. Maybe that was just his game the whole way. Maybe he didn't actually do it, but he's just fucking with Fellas in here.
I feel like he's fucking with her. But I could totally see where you're coming from, because Beneth would be so pissed if Bowden just showed up out of nowhere after he'd been leading all these search parties to find him. You know what I mean? Like, to Beneth, at least in my opinion, Bowden is the reason why everybody, Skullcap is chaotic at the moment. So like in that moment where he's trying to wrangle in the rebellion, so to speak, and Bowden shows up, like, I'd fucking punch him too, you know? Like, I could just see it from that like toxic masculinity standpoint. He's not going to want to talk. He's not going to want to hear any explanations from Bowden. So maybe you're onto something, and Bowden was forced to kill him because he was defending himself.
You think a lot deeper on it. I just kind of thought, well, I got the sense that Bowden never really liked him, and because if I remember right, I think Benneth was wounded, wasn't he? Like, because Fellison ran, they got crossbow shot at him. She never. I don't feel like we ever got clear confirmation that he got hit, but I feel like it was pretty likely that he got hit by a crossbow, and maybe that didn't kill him, but then Benneth just came and finished him off.
Maybe. I mean, I feel like the only thing that we get of Beneth is that he was punched in the nose by like a gauntleted fist. We never get any. We're assuming that he got shot with crossbows. It never stated that. It just stated that he got punched in the face.
I thought because they were at the bar or whatever, tavern, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
and like they got circled by a bunch of people, and I thought they had a bunch of crossbows aimed in on them at one point, and then Fellison took off, or maybe he told her to run, and then I thought like she had a crossbow bolt whiz by her head, so I just kind of assumed Benneth probably bit one.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't kill him, but or was that something else? I don't remember him getting punched in the face, I guess, and I'm not doubting you. I just don't remember that specific part.
No, I'm reading it. I'm reading my summary right now. It was the very first section of the last chapter. Benneth turns to speak to her when a docile guardsman steps up and shatters his nose. Fellowson turns and runs, hearing crossbow bolts whiz past her as she runs. So that's literally
okay. So it's kind of a mix of them.
Yeah. I guess it's up in the air. I mean, Bowden totally could be lying here. He totally could be telling the truth. But I think that either way, Bowden is recognizing that Fellowson is not ready to hear the truth. You know what I mean?
He's just like antagonizing her.
Yeah, which maybe serves as some type of purpose. I mean, I get Bowden and Beneth's perspective here too. Like, they just think that she's a spoiled brat, and it's hard. It's hard to have this type of dilemma between characters that you actually enjoy. Like, you want them to get along. You want them to work well with together. And especially in this circumstance, right? Like, you recognize they have a long distance to travel. They don't have a ton of supplies, and they have no idea if the plan is even gonna come to fruition.
Yeah,
So like
it would seem like teamwork would be the best option, and they're just one third of it is maybe 2/3 of them are not playing into that.
right. I mean, I feel like if anything, Hebrick is kind of the mediator here between Bowden and Fellowson. But Fellowson still has her ill thoughts for both of them, really.
Yeah, she do.
Yeah, it's just, I think that what is beautiful about the way that everything is written is almost get a sense of the seething from these characters coming off the pages. Like, it's almost like, how in movies and TV shows, how they break the fourth wall, where the character addresses the audience. The amount of emotion that is within just these first two sections and how it's building, I kind of compare to that phenomena, the breaking of the fourth wall. Like, you can almost feel, like, you feel gross. Like, I felt gross a little bit after reading these two sections. It's just, yeah, the tension is just so crazy.
Palpable, is that what they
Right.
usually say?
Exactly. The other thing that I had here is, and when she gets in her tent, she wished that she had some Durhanger wine. And I feel like this has a lot to do with why she's being a little bit so argumentative, is that she's probably going through an opioid withdrawal. And from what I understand, that's not an easy thing to do. So I feel like this doesn't help the situation at all, is that on top of this, she is going through withdrawal. I mean, she no longer has access to this drug.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's probably a shitty few days, and then hopefully you kind of readjust and you can start functioning and surviving without it. But yeah, it's I've never done it, but I imagine it to be unpleasant.
Yeah, yeah. I've never done it either, so I'm not really sure of the timeline there. But and here's where the River of Blood comes up, kind of elaborating off of your section there. But it said in the section that the River of Blood to Felozin is described as like an embrace, like welcoming and protective. It flowed with purpose, and in its warm currents, she felt she was close to understanding that purpose. Felozin felt that she would discover this soon, and that the knowledge she gained would change her world. Not just a plump, out of shape girl and used up, the vision of her future reduced to days when it should be measured in decades. A girl who could call herself young with sneering irony. That passage to me was pretty much I mean, all of that happened after she enters her tent. And I feel like this is some tremendous amount of foreshadowing. And this river of blood is, to me, like the river of Styx, so to speak. So when I think of the river of blood, I'm thinking death. I'm thinking Hood, the river Styx, death's warm embrace. So I think that, and also the whole comment or thought about the vision of her future reduced to days when it should be
Yeah, it
measured.
doesn't sound good.
Right. It's very ominous. It's very like, is she going to die here? I mean, very anticlimactic, but it's, she's obviously having these dreams because it may be some type of premonition in a way.
I've just had a thought, and I will save it for a little bit longer here, and because the River of Blood comes up again,
Yep.
I'll save it for there. But I've just had a thought.
All right. All
We'll see
right.
what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that it's a very interesting premise. And I always find it fun to think about dreams and their meanings. So there's got to be something there.
I definitely think there is.
Yeah. But I guess outside of the seething and the bitterness and kind of the confrontations and Bowden and Beneth, I don't have anything else that I could elaborate for this section.
All right. Well, we'll move on then. Felsen woke up thirsty and her mouth thing like gross. She could hear packing going on outside and tried to slip back to the dream of her being carried down the river, but she could not recapture it. As she sat up, she felt pain in her joints, and she knew the others felt it too. Some sort of nutrient deficiency, but they couldn't figure it out. She found Bowden and Hebrig eating some rations. There wasn't much left except for some salty ass bread that left them all thirsty. Hebrig said they should eat the bread first, but he gave up on that after the first meal. She thought maybe they all knew they wouldn't live long enough for it to make a difference what they ate when. After eating, Bowden kept packing up food. Hebrig said they made quite the threesome. Felsen asked how. They're just like for each other? He shouldn't be surprised. They're all fucked up in their own ways. Gods be damned if he hasn't pointed out her flaws. Bowden is just a murderer and a bully. In truth, he's just a fucking coward at heart. And Hebrig's flaws? Well, they're obvious enough, but hardly worth mentioning. He tells her to put a stop to it. He doesn't need a 15-year-old girl telling him his shortcomings. She asked him why he left the priesthood. Pinching some coin, perhaps? So they cut off your hands and tossed them in the trash. Seems enough of a reason to take up writing history. Bowden said it was time to leave. Felsen says he hasn't answered yet. Bowden says yes, he has, and it sounds like it's her turn to carry the pack. Felsen says that seems reasonable, but fuck off, she's not doing it. Bowden did not appreciate this. Hebrig told him to drop it. As he said that, Felsen noticed his stump where he had touched the finger. He had tattoos on the stump, and the rest of his tattoos seemed darker. She asked what happened. Heberick didn't know, but said it hurt like hell. He asks if magic can thrive buried in Otadriel sand. Could Otadriel give birth to magic? He had no answers. Fellison said it served him right. He was a dumbass for touching it. Fellison asked if there was a water hole before they stopped for the night. Bowden answered by saying she should have asked before she took more than her share of the rations. Being a brat, she says she didn't ask. So is there a watering hole or not? Bowden says they lost half a night, meaning there ain't no fucking water until tomorrow night, and that she should have saved the last mouthful. She thought that she had no ideas of being noble when it came to her next drink. Honor is for fools, and a fatal flaw. Heberick is probably dying, so it would be wasted on him anyways. As they walked, Heberick fell behind as usual. It would be her and Bowden at the shore of this shithole. She thought about Bowden's murder of Lady Gayson and how objectively terrible it was. But if he were to do the same today with Heberick, putting him out of his misery, she wouldn't even bat an eye. She thought about the river of blood in her dream, and that thought warmed her.
Well, it definitely seems like the culmination of her thoughts are poison on her tongue, as Heberick would so call it.
Yeah, she's got quite the mouth on her.
Yeah, it's showing her arc that she's getting increasingly more frustrated, and I feel like the environment isn't helping, the withdrawal isn't helping, the lack of resources aren't helping. So she's just snippy. She's snappy, and she doesn't give a fuck about holding back her thoughts anymore. She, at this point, to me, doesn't care about these relationships.
No,
It's the hostility.
They're just kind of the people that are there.
Right. And she's almost trying to use them as a means to an end.
Yeah, it's just I don't want to say friendship, but it's just a circumstance of the time. These are who she's stuck with, so she's going to use them to the best of her abilities, I guess, for now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it's just Bowden and Heberick aren't even, more so Bowden, but it seems like they're not taking her shit anymore, so they're not wanting to put up with it either, like things would go a lot smoother if they could all just work together.
Yeah, I'm sure they're just thinking, just shut the fuck up and let's just walk.
Let's just get through this. Yeah.
Can we just have some silence?
Right. Do you think Felizan rejecting carrying the bag is her subtle way of trying to kill off Heberick?
I didn't think about that, but I think that's probably a good point. Now that you mentioned that, that's probably kind of her way of getting back at him. You remember when she said, "I'll see you back to the carts" or whatever? Like maybe this is kind of that equivalent. They don't have a cart, but they got a bag. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good point. I think it makes sense.
So she's applying past grievances to the situation, which those past grievances aren't going to help.
No,
yeah, that's a good point.
Just fucking let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. At this point, she's not demonstrating that she can. And again, it's just goes back to my previous comment about the seething just coming right off the page. Like it was really hard to read these sections. Just everything is just in opposite corners of each other. And yeah, it was just tough. You almost feel bad for everybody for different reasons.
Yeah, it feels just like a fight ready to explode at any second.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I really like that, the way that you phrase that. Yeah, I feel like outside of the continued argument, it was a very transitional scene. So I didn't have a ton more to add to this particular section. I don't know if you did.
No, I didn't. I mean, the Heberick's thoughts, if magic could thrive in the Otadriel sand, or if is magic, given birth by Otadriel, is kind of interesting. But I don't have any deep thoughts on it right now. Just I know it's something we've kind of thought about before a little bit, but
I feel like that kind of got brought up in Gardens of the Moon a little bit, didn't it? Magic, or maybe it was at the beginning of this book when they were talking about Otadriel, and that in order to in order to stop magic, you have to use magic to stop it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like it makes you think about it, but it kind of, at least right now, it feels like a secondary concern. It's not anything that's in the forefront, but it's fun to think about.
So maybe that's what the whole finger thing is about. Maybe the Otadriel dust is keeping keeping whatever this thing is at bay. And maybe it's some type of like magic relic or some type of dead mage that is held in suspended animation until the Ototero dust goes away.
Yeah, that could be a lot of different things.
Yeah. I
Almost
think,
endless, a lot of possibilities.
you know, where
Yeah,
it's just this thing that gets introduced and then nothing ever comes of it. So
right.
I've got the feeling that it has more to do with Seven Cities past, like the memories thing. And the Seven Cities, what lies under the sand will rise up and fight what's currently, that type of spiel.
I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, but I guess if I'm good if you're good.
Yeah, go ahead.
As Bowden had predicted, there was no watering hole. Their night's journey comes to an end. They had selected a sandy bed surrounded by wind-sculpted limestone. Bones littered the bed, and Bowden simply threw them aside as he started to set up the tents. Philzin sat with her back to a rock and watched for Hebrick's appearance from the flat plain they had just crossed. He had never lagged this long before. As dawn light started to show, she wondered if his lifeless body was lying out there somewhere. Bowden gets angry with her and tells her that she would have been the one to carry the backpack with food in it. Felsen has a thought about not having any sympathy for the old man. She tells Bowden that he's fucked and he'll have to look for Hebrick. Bowden stood staring eastward for a second and then started off. Once he'd reached the rocks, he started jogging. It was when Felsen saw this that she became frightened of Bowden. He's been keeping and hoarding food and water, she thought. She scrambled to her feet and rushed over to the pack that Bowden had left near his tent. She rummaged through it, finding a few things but no reserve food, no extra water. Her fear of Bowden at this point deepened further. She put everything back in the pack as footsteps approached. Bowden had the pack on his back and Hebrick in his arms. He explains to her that he needs water and sets him down in the soft sand. Bowden tells her to quickly grab the water from the pack. Fellows does nothing, and finally asks him why. As they need it more than Hebrick does, Bowden finds a way to swing the pack around so he can grab the water. He asks Fellows if this is how Hebrick would treat her if she was in this position. She doesn't answer this question, but states that he's dying, isn't he? Bowden responds that they are all dying, and for now they need each other, but when this is all over, they can all go their separate ways. Bowden pours the water into Hebrick's mouth and encourages him to drink. Felsen exclaims that the water poured is Bowden's ration and not hers. Coldly, Bowden states that no one would think her anything but noble-born. Opening her legs for all of Skullcap was evidence enough. Fellows snaps and tells him that it kept them all alive. Bowden simply states that it kept her fat and lazy. He continues to explain that the most of what he and Hebrick ate came from doing the Dosai favors. Beneth had given them dregs to keep her sweet. Bowden tells Felsen that Beneth used to laugh at her noble cause. Felsen says that he's lying. Grinning, all he says was, "If you say so." Just then, Hebrick starts to cough and then sits up. Bowden tells Hebrick that he should see himself, because from a distance, Hebrick looks like one solid tattoo, and is dark as a doll Hanese warlock. Up close, though, Bowden can see every line, every hair of the boar's fur. Bowden continues to let Hebrick drink. This action causes Felsen to absolutely lose her shit, and calls him a bastard as the last of the water enters Hebrick's mouth. In her mind, she was seething. Leaving Beneth to die and now trying to poison the memory of him, she did what she did to keep them alive, and they hate that fact because they feel guilty for the price she paid. Bowden is cutting his conscience loose, so when he drives the blade within her, he won't feel a thing, just like he did with Lady Gaysine. Speaking loudly and meeting Hebrick's eyes, she explains to them that she dreams of a river of blood, and that she rides it, and that they're both, but only first, because they both drown in the river. She's going to be the one to live through this, just her. They both stared as she stormed her way back to her tent. Yeah, this is the explosion. This is the explosion that you alluded to. They are no longer holding back with each other. They're just letting it all out in the open,
I guess, yeah, I mean, sometimes that's what you need, though. Like, you get it out, you have that fight, and then you can just regroup from it and move on. But I don't know if that's what's going to happen here.
Yeah. No, I mean, regardless, that they're still stuck with each other in some way, shape, or form. They still have to help each other. But and again, I feel like this is part of Fellows' upbringing. Like she expects to be catered to. Like she's not going to carry the pack. But that could also be that she has some ill intentions. That may not be a nobility thing, but that may be a rather well, no, it's still a nobility thing because she needs the water. She's hell bent on surviving. And I get that, but at what cost? Is she the one in the river of blood putting their heads underneath the blood so that they drown, or are they drowning on their own?
This is where I kind of had a thought, and I still think Fellison's gonna die, but I'm almost wondering now if so. I mean, she's been such a bitch to these guys so far, but I wonder if something is gonna come up where she's gonna end up sacrificing herself to save one or both of them.
And this river of blood alludes to that.
I don't know. I feel like it would make. I don't know because it completely contradicts her being killed by Tavor. I don't know.
I think that where this could potentially allude is they get into some type of circumstance, and it could very well be this one, where it is legitimately her being so self-centered that she ends up causing both of these two to die in order to get away.
I can buy that. I can see
So,
that.
and it may be this situation, it may be something further down the road too. I mean, I get the feeling that these guys aren't going to separate. Like they're going to stick together. I feel like, and I think what would be cool. But again, this is just me as a reader. It would be great if Fellowsin has this epiphany and realizes that she's been treating them like a bitch and not kind of carrying her own weight, etc. And they all just kind of hug each other and yes, we're best of friends now, and they conquer the world. You know what I mean? Like,
I hate to tell you this, Justin. This is. I don't think this is going to be a happy story.
no, not at all. That's just me wishing for some stuff. That's all.
Yeah, that's more than fair. More than
Yeah,
fair.
but I think what's interesting now is on top of the bitterness and the seething is now there's some paranoia here, right? Like there's a reason why she went to go look into Bowden's pack. And that is because of the way that he was spry enough to jaunt or like jog out to go find Hebrick. So she's thinking, oh, well, he's got to have extra rations. Like there's no way he could be this lively. You know what I mean? And it's funny. It's just, it adds another element to the already range of emotions that she's got.
Yeah, it's easy to see why the paranoia is there. I mean, yeah, if you've been maybe they're not covering as much ground as they want, but they've still been going pretty hard, and for Bowden to be going as hard as he is still would seem suspicious.
Right. Yeah. Minor little segue, but I mean, you put it together that they were traveling at night and sleeping during the day, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just thought it was cool to, have that thought and that understanding without being directly told. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that adds to the whole cinematicness of it, is that there's no hand holding. It's the desert. They're traveling at night because it's cooler.
You're not getting roasted alive by
Right.
the sun.
Yeah. Did you find it interesting what she found in his pack?
I was wondering about the fucking talon that she finds.
Yeah, I was curious about that as well. I don't know where or what that would be, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know either. But yeah, what else? There was some knives or whatever, but there wasn't what she expected to find, water or food, and so her paranoia is almost a little unfounded, I guess. I kind of feel like.
Well, right, because the paranoia, breaches to the claw. The only thing that I can recall is that she thinks that there's poison in it. There's poison in the claw, as well as like the assassin's knives. Like this is where she's assuming that after Hebrick dies, Bowden has no conscience because he's clearly to Fellowsin pushing her away so that he can kill her.
Yeah, and we see a little bit more of that pretty soon here. Or maybe it was just all there. I know, yeah, there's so much, it's little pieces that just, continues to build. And so sometimes I kind of forget where one is, or they kind of blend together, even though they're
Yeah.
in different sections.
I mean, to be fair, this very well could have been easily one very long section, 5
It's
sections.
nice to
Yeah.
nice to get that breakup though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, cuz this would have been a very long section to summarize. So, I'm glad that
Yes.
we got to pick it apart, or divide it up the way that we did.
Yeah.
Um, the only other thing that I thought was interesting was the Bowden could see every hair of the boar's fur. Now, I don't know if that means like tattooed hair lines or if it's actual fur.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either. Like, is he turning into the fucking Wolfman, or is it just tattooed? I don't know. I didn't really come to a decision either way.
Yeah. For some reason, I want to say it's hair. Like, I can just imagine, like, tattoos all over your body, and in the parts where it's just the ink, hair is coming out. Like, that's kind of, I guess, where my headcanon is going with that. Like, I don't know if it means. I think what it's meant to be interpreted as is as hair, like
Sure.
actual
I get,
hair. Those are my only things for that section. Everything is escalating, and some of the same themes from the previous sections are carried over and added to, and yeah.
it's definitely the tension's still building.
Right.
Well, ready to move on then?
I am.
All right. The next evening, they found a spring an hour before the moon rose. Bowden went to the water's edge, but took no further action. Fellison, nearly ready to collapse, drops her pack and falls to her knees. She's ready to drink the water, but Bowden says it's covered in cape moths. The water has been fouled. The cape moth larvae feeding on their parents' bodies. Fellison said just to strain the water through a cloth. Bowden says they can't. The little larvae piss poison to eliminate any possible competition. It'll be a month before it's safe to drink. Felsen urges that they need it. He tells her it will kill them. Bowden turned away as Heberick had finally arrived, his skin now pitch black, but his tattoos outlined like silver. Fellison laughed upon seeing him, asking if he recalled the round in Unta, Hood's acolyte covered in flies, who was actually nothing but flies. He had a message for you. And now, what does she see? A man swarm, but not in flies, but tattoos. Different gods, but the same message is all that she sees. She wants Heberick to let Fenner talk through him. Will those words echo Hood's? Heberick looked at Fellison, his mouth open, but spoke no words. Being a little bitch, she cupped a hand to her ear and said, "What was that? The buzzing of wings? Surely not." Bowden called her a fool, and wanted to find somewhere else to camp. She asked if these were ill omens. She didn't know they mattered to a murderer. He told her to put a pipe in it. She said it made no difference. They were dead anyways. What was Hood's symbol in Seven Cities? They call him the Hooded One there, don't they? Spit it out, Bowden. What do they have carved on the Lord of Death's temple in Erin? Bowden tells her he figures she already knows the answer. But it's Cape Moths. Cape Moths. It's a hard word to say sometimes. Hood sent a message at the round in Unta, and now it's been fulfilled. Bowden only told her that her river of blood no longer mattered. Fellison was hit by a dizzy spell and fell on her ass. She looked over and saw Heberick on the ground. She thought he was dead. She yelled at Bowden to do something. He gave no reply. She asked our coast. He said it didn't matter. That was to pick them up 3 days. They were at least 4 from the coast and getting weaker by the hour. Fellison asked how far to the next water. 7 hours. Probably 14 in the shape she was in. She snaps at him and says he seems like he's in pretty good shape and he doesn't seem thirsty. He tells her he's been drinking his own piss. This takes Fellison aback and she asks again. He tells her she heard him. She says that's not a good enough answer. Was he eating his own shit too? Did he make a deal with a god? Bowden scoffs at this, asking her if she thought it was that easy. Hey God, save me and I will serve you. He asks her how many of her prayers have been answered. That, and the only thing he has faith in, is himself. So she says he hasn't given up yet. He waits a moment and says no, which surprises Fellison. He removed his pack, and Fellison suddenly felt scared. The way he looked at her, and thinks he may be sizing her up as a meal. Bowden crouched next to Heberick. Fellison asked if he was dead. She told him to skin him. She wouldn't eat the flesh with tattoos no matter how hungry she was. Bowden looked at her but said nothing. Fellison didn't know what he was doing. Bowden said he lived, and that may be just enough to save them. He told her he didn't care how far she fell from grace, just to keep her thoughts to herself. Bowden removed Heberick's rotting clothing, exposing his tattoos. He had Fenner's sacred mark. He had been excommunicated, but Fenner still remained within him, as evident from the living tattoos. Bowden wanted to know how she knew about the mark. She told him it was a lie for Benneth. She needed Heberick to buy into it, so he gave her all the details. She said he, or Bowden, meant to call on the god. Bowden said he found it. Fellison said, now what? How do you reach another man's god? There's no lock to pick. This got a reaction out of Bowden. She asked how he thought Heberick lost his hands. Bowden said he was a thief once. She said once. It was being excommunicated that took his hands. There was a key. The priest had a warrant to his god. The key tattooed on the palm of his hand to chest to activate it. Bowden took his stump and put it to his chest. The air howled, and they were beaten with sound. They tried to dig into the ground to escape the sound and the pain. Fellison was bleeding from her ears. She saw cracks reaching out from the ground under Heberick's body. They seemed to be extensions of the marks on his body, and where they went, they seemed to make the ground greasy. The sky turned inside out. The noise and the screaming still hadn't stopped. Somehow she was able to block out the sound and light. Something hit the ground and sent her into the air. She landed hard. Opening her eyes, she saw a two-toed hoof rising into the sky. She couldn't comprehend its size. The tattoo had leapt from the ground into the air itself, making a kind of web. She couldn't breathe, and she thought she was dying, stuck in the silent void of a god's scream. She could breathe again. She pushed herself to her hands and knees. She looked over and saw Bowden in the same position as her. Tears of blood filled his face. She wondered if Fenner was now among them. Fellison and Bowden met eyes. She said they wanted the god's attention, not the goddamn god himself. She shivered. She continued saying he didn't want to come either. Bowden flinched and said he's gone now. Fellison was like, is he really though? Bowden looked at Heberick and commented that he breathed easier now. The water pool was gone, and only the Cape Moth corpses remained. Fellison laughed and thought this was some fucking salvation. Heberick spoke. He managed to whisper and said, he's here. Bowden told him they knew this. Heberick kept talking, saying he was in the mortal realm and vulnerable. Fellison says he needs to see things from her point of view. The god that you no longer worship, that took your hands, so you took him down a peg. Do not fuck with mortals. Bowden wondered how a god could hide. Heberick rose and said he'd give what's left of an arm to be able to look at a deck of dragons right now. He added that it's been years, but the ghosts are back. Neither knew what that meant. He says the hands that aren't there, echoes, enough to drive a man mad, and now he feels better. Felson said he was healed by a god he rejected, but they need to walk to get to the next water hole. If they don't, they're dead. Bowden led the way, and Felson thought that a god is on the planet but is scared, has immeasurable power but is still scared and hides. She thought it was insane that Heberick survived all of this. She thought this should have broken him, destroyed his soul, yet all he did was bend, not break. She wondered what the hell he did to lose his hands. She put that to the side as she had her own thoughts to conquer. She had thoughts of murder, but struggled with their loose friendship. She wanted to run away, feeling like their presence was driving her mad and towards her death, but she knew she needed them. Heberick said they would make it to the coast. He could smell the water. It was close. And when they get there, he told Fellison she would find that nothing had changed. He asked if she understood. She had 1,000 ideas of what he meant, but didn't understand it all. Bowden was up ahead and gave a surprised shout.
Not gonna lie, this section was super confusing the first time I read this.
I guess I didn't feel too bad about it. I really liked this one.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, I don't want to say that I enjoyed like the hopelessness feeling, but I mean, you get to this water hole and it's like you got to the ocean, I guess. I mean, you got all this water in front of you and you can't drink it for one, I mean, different reasons here, but they got water, but they can't drink it.
Yeah.
I really liked she sees Heberick and the way he looks and relates it to the acolyte of Hood and the flies. I thought that was really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't even remember what what the priest of Hood said. Do you remember?
Oh God, I don't remember. That was in the prologue, right? I got the book right here.
Oh, here it is. The words to show now.
Oh, that's yeah. Now that you mention it, you say it, I remember it now.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's interesting that Fellowson is making this comparison between the Priest of Hood and Fenner because they're both kind of doing the same thing, right? Show now,
Right.
show now.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like she said, I mean, different gods, but I mean, you get the reveal of a god in both. So I
Yeah.
felt like that hoof. I mean, that must be a boar, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and this goes back to, very early in the episode when I was talking about Fenner. And as we were talking, it kind of made sense that I mean, we knew that based on the section that Fenner was living within inside of Hebrick. And I think that he was hiding in Hebrick's tattoos, which explains how he's able to basically not be eliminated during the call. It explains why the blood flies didn't attack him. They were always a reference to his tattoos. So I think that Fenner was living within the tattoos. And the
Hmm.
Ota Terrell dust, or the extreme harshness of this environment, along with weakening Hebrick, has weakened Fenner. And that's why he was unable to hide anymore. And that's why we were able to see the tattoos sharpen, get darker, and then eventually the fur kind of start to come out. So I think that if they would have tried to, put the stump to chest earlier, it wouldn't have worked.
What if it was the jade finger
You think that
that
Fenner was.
activated all this?
You think so? I mean, it could be.
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not gonna say I
No,
definitely think that, but
right. No, I feel like for both situations, whether the Otatero dust or the Jade Finger has somehow caused Fenner to weaken in some way, shape, or form, and now he's hiding, right? Because
yeah,
if Hebrick is suddenly better or breathing easier, then it must have been Fenner that was causing him to be drugged down. It must have been Fenner that was the reason why he wasn't doing well. So Fenner was the crutch in this situation, based on the very small amount of evidence that I have here. But I guess I'm curious as to where this goes. Like, does Fenner help them, or does he just hide like a coward? And where is he hiding? In the sky?
yeah. I don't. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
This to take your line, it was a very cinematic experience reading this.
Yeah.
And then you've got Bowden saying he's been drinking his own piss, and Fellison's like, "Well, that's not a good enough answer. What more could the guy do?
I,
Like, you got friggin' Bear Grylls over here drinking his own piss on day one. I mean, I know this isn't day one, but I mean, he could have been for all we really know, just to try to conserve some water. But
yeah.
man, like, I've never walked across a desert, and I guess if I had to do it, or I was gonna die, I'd probably drink my own piss. But I mean, I'd have to be pretty freaking desperate to get to that point.
Yep. Or he's doing it so that he and Hebrick, or so that Hebrick and Fellowson could have a little bit of his share of water.
Right? That's kind of what I mean. As far as conserving some water.
Yeah. But I guess it just kind of goes to show the character. I mean, Fellowson's calling him out on all of these accusations, but him being willing to drink his own piss, not only from a survival standpoint, but from the fact that, he's not thinking about himself. I guess it just kind of goes
Right.
to show, the soul of his character a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty selfless, and especially what I think this section we see probably Fellison at her worst so far. I mean,
Yeah.
she's been pretty horrible throughout this chapter, but this is where it really boiled over, and she was really nasty. And I mean, this whole time he's remained pretty calm.
Yeah. And just
I
kind
mean,
of shrugging off her insults.
yeah. I mean, he might have egged her on a little bit with some of his comments and his smirk and stuff like that, but he really hasn't been too snarky back to her.
No. Which goes back to our conversation about Beneth and Bowden. Is he telling the truth about Beneth and all of these other things as well?
I kind of think he might be.
So I think
I mean,
this might
why?
confirm our theory that he did kill Beneth.
Yeah, I kind of think he probably did. I mean, why would he lie about it?
Right.
I mean, what does he gain to lie about it to Fellison and just piss her off if he didn't actually?
Right. Yeah, maybe this is just a subtle way of telling her what actually happened, And
Yeah,
it just even in the last section, and I forgot to talk about it, but I think that Fellowson is eventually all of this information that Bowden is saying is going to sink in. Like the thing that comes to mind is when he explains to Fellowson that no, it wasn't just her. Like they had been working extra for the Dosai to get extra rations or food, as well as appeasing Beneth behind her back, and Beneth would give them dregs or like the last of something. If there was a sip left of wine, he would give it to him.
right.
So I totally see why everybody is on the opposite side from each other. And I just wonder when there's going to be some solace and some closure. I doubt that's going to happen, but that's just what I'm hoping for.
I mean, we've got what, we're a third or so of the way into the book here.
Yep,
I'm gonna imagine we got a little bit to go.
probably. Yeah. I'm hopeful though. It sounds like between Hebrick and Bowden that there may be some good news though, because Hebrick is able to smell the water, and Bowden, as he's I'm assuming scouting up ahead, gives a surprise shout. So
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think it's a good surprise, or I mean, I don't know if I'm trusting that it's gonna be something they're excited for.
I mean, this it has to be because they've gone through so much of a nightmare. I mean, they've been crossing a desert, they've got withdrawals, they're at each other's throats, suspicions, paranoia, confrontation. This has to be the part where, something good happens for their situation.
Or it could be one more step into darkness.
Right. Maybe
I don't know.
maybe in Fenner's, how like something hit the ground and she's like spiraled in the air and then hit the ground hard. Maybe that was Fenner stomping in one last effort of his strength to allow them to cross a vast amount of distance, or maybe in the whirling void of the shriek, Fenner used their warren to push them closer to the coast.
I guess we'll just have to read this next chapter to find out.
Right. But yeah, I guess, are you saying you don't have anything else for this section?
I have two things. The silent void of a god scream. I thought that was a really cool line. Didn't really have any deep thoughts on it, but it just like, damn, that was a cool line. And then Heberick talking about the ghosts being back and these echoes that are enough to drive a man mad, but he's calm. Like that doesn't make sense to me. Like those two things seem to contradict each other. Like you've got these ghosts that are going to drive you mad, but you're comforted by that.
I don't know. I guess I'm interpreting them as not being related. I think that everything prior to him feeling better or his statement that he feels better is a comment about, again, the history of Raraku, or not Raraku, but of the Seven Cities. It's been years, but the ghosts are back. He didn't know specifically what that meant, but the hands that aren't there are echoing enough to drive a man mad. I think that
Okay.
those are related, and then I think he's just saying he feels better now.
Gotcha. Sometimes I just need you to clean things up for me.
I think that along with like, how Fiddler has been in his journey into the desert has been making comments and notes about the land shifting, and it may not have been Fiddler specifically, but there have been characters that we've read so far that are sensing something within the sand, and I think Hebrick is feeling it too.
There's something there, I'm sure.
Yeah, but
Those are the last two things I had.
Gotcha. No, I like the silent void of God's scream. That sounds like a metal track.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
I guess that's the only thing that comes to my mind.
All right. Well, I'm ready to move forward here.
All right, well, here's my last section. I summarized a lot more than I probably should have. And I simply think that it was kind of confusing to read it the first time, and I really didn't make sense of it until I was summarizing it. But Mappo's thoughts had him traveling 800 leagues westward. Not currently, but back to 2 centuries ago. He saw himself crossing a plain with grass about chest high. However, the grass had been plastered down with what seemed like grease, and as he walked, the earth beneath him seemed to shift. He had known for centuries, wedded to war, feuding and sacrifices before the god of honor, a game meant for the young, and he'd long grown weary of it. He had stayed, rooting himself, but only because he's grown accustomed to the scenery. It was amazing what he could endure when things were forced, as he'd reached a point where anything strange and unusual caused fear. Unlike his brothers and sisters, he could not let fear rule his life, and it had taken the horror he approached to uproot him. He had been young when he walked out of the trader town, and he had called home. Like so many of his age back then, he had been caught. In a backlash to this, they rejected the unwillingness of other Trell towns and elder warriors who had now become traders of various sorts, and now relived their fighting paths. He embraced the wandering days of old, and willingly suffered an initiation into one of the backland clans that had retained their more traditional lifestyle. The chains of his beliefs held for hundreds of years snapped, at last in a way he could never have foreseen. His memories remained sharp, and once again he strode across the plain. The trader town he had grown up in was in ruins. A month had passed since its destruction. The bodies that had been slain, outside of those caught in the raging fires, were now being picked clean from the plain scavengers. He was returning home to nothing but bone, torn cloth, and burned, battered stone. The ancient shoulder women of his adopted clan had divined a tale from the flat bones they burned. The same tale the Nameless Ones had predicted months earlier. While the Trell of the towns had become strangers to them all, they were still kin. That task that remained was not one of vengeance. This announcement silenced the many who, like Mappo, had been born in the destroyed town. All notions of vengeance must be purged in the one chosen for the task. These were the words of the Nameless Ones who foresaw this moment. Mappo didn't understand why he was the chosen, for he was no different from his fellow warriors. Vengeance was everything. The ritual would purge all he was. Nameless Ones spoke to him and told him that he was an unpainted hide, the future writing its own script, shaping his history anew. What was done to the town must never happen again, and Mappo is to ensure that. Without the horrific destruction of his town, he would have defied them all. He had seen and walked the overgrown main street. Near the market round, a Nameless One was waiting for him, eyes meeting him as he approached. With a hiss, she tells Mappo that they do not see in years, but in centuries. Mappo must learn to do the same, as the elders have decreed. Slowly gazing around, Mappo observes the ruins and explains that it has the feel of a raider army. She cuts him off and tells him that one day he will return to his home, as Mappo has done here and now. Until that time, you must attend. Mappo interrupts her by shouting, "Why me?" The Nameless One just shrugs as a response to this. Mappo goes on to ask what they would do if he defied them. She tells him that this would demand patience. The Nameless One twirled her staff in the air, filling his world until he was lost in its tortured maze. The sound of Icarium's voice broke Mappo's trance of his memories. They had climbed up a sandy hill to see the way ahead better. The Jaghut tells Mappo that the Trell's memories always fascinated him, but even more so because Mappo has been reluctant to share them. Mappo explains that he was just recalling his clan and the things he missed, like the birthing of new herds, as well as the glory he had earned sneaking into a raider's camp and breaking the tips of every warrior's knife and snuck out without anyone ever noticing. Icarium asked who or what happened to them. Mappo replies that a cleverer raider took them back. Icarium asked if that was all she stole. Mappo replies by saying to let him have some secrets. The Trell rose, wiping sand from his pants. He observes and states that the sandstorm has grown 3 times its size since they have stopped. Icarium studied the dark wall bisecting the plain. He says that he believes that it has gotten closer as well, and that it was born of sorcery, perhaps the very breath of a goddess. Its strength grows, and he can feel it calling to them. Mappo, shudders and makes the comment that it's surprising, assuming that Shaik is indeed dead. Icarium says that her death may have been necessary, as no mortal could have commanded all this power. Can a living being stay alive, being the gateway between Dryjana and this realm? Mappo replies by asking Icarium if it's possible she became an ascendant. Icarium simply says that it's possible. Mappo fell silent. The possibilities multiplied every time they talked about Shaik, the whirlwind, or the prophecies. Together, they were creating their own confusion. Mappo thinks, whom does this serve? Iskaro Poos' face appeared, grinning in Mappo's mind. Growling, Mappo tells Icarium that they are being manipulated and he can feel it. Icarium tells Mappo that he could tell, and explains that he's felt manipulated all his life. The Trell, disguising a flinch, asks who Icarium thought it could be. The Jag simply says that he doesn't care because he stopped asking himself that question long time ago. Mappo stares at Icarium's back as he walks toward the sandstorm. Mappo has the thought, but what of sweet vengeance, friend?
Yeah, this was a tough section. I will probably not have much to say. I will listen to your thoughts and maybe respond to those, but I definitely struggled with this one. Even reading it twice, it was. I feel like it was maybe one of the most challenging parts that we've read in this book so far.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion.
Well, from what I gathered, it's essentially just it's a history of Mappo. And I use the word rooting towards the beginning of the section, but in the book, the author uses the term tree, and I'm assuming that by putting in the word rooting may easily get what the author was trying to convey, or it could potentially have like a deeper meaning, like is the house of the Azath really a massive tree in the middle of a desert or something? You know, like, but I don't think that. That was just me in a tangent in my own mind when I was writing the summary. But it's essentially saying that Mappo basically he was rooted to this town. You know, he enjoyed the scenery and, you know, he was rooted to himself is essentially what I'm getting from it. He was rooted to the ways of the Trell.
Yeah, he didn't want to give it up.
Right. Until he was rooted to, okay, here we go. So in the line where he could not let fear rule his life and it had taken the horror he approached to uproot him, I think this is trying to tell us that he once lived his life in fear and that was what he was rooted to, and what he will be approaching, the horror of it, allowed him to not live his life in fear. So the horror isn't really like explained. I think that like this is referring to he had known for centuries, wedded to war, feuding and sacrifices before the god of honor. I feel like that. Basically, I get the sense that he was living in fear. Something had happened that allowed him to not fear, essentially. But what I'm getting, though, is that he was basically kidnapped, along with others his age. As it was explained that he had been young when he walked out of the trader town, he had called home. Like so many of his age back then, he had been caught. So I'm interpreting that as he was potentially kidnapped. And the Trells in this town, they seem to have two sides to them. And that is that we've left our days of old as to establish peace, and the other side where they're embracing their warrior style of the past. So I'm assuming that there was likely some division, but also I'd imagine or assume that Mappo and others were rescued by the Trells that embraced their past. And it seems that Mappo had joined some type of clan that embraced that traditional lifestyle. So are you following me so far? Does that make sense?
I think so.
So it just kind of seems like, and again, the events that happen are very, nothing is detailed about them. But from what I understand about the elder warriors who have given up their warrior lifestyle to essentially become traders of various things, didn't want to do anything about Mappo and others his age being caught. What really that means, I'm not sure. I'm interpreting that as kidnapped. They were.
Yeah, I did. I definitely didn't pick that up.
So, but then there's the other side of that coin where their traditional their traditional ways were embraced by clans that didn't live within the town. So you have land clans, and then you have the trolls that are living in a town. So kind of like urban versus rural type of trolls.
Yeah, definitely not things I was piecing together like you here.
Yeah. And I mean,
You make
and
it a lot better. So
thanks.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So the chains of his beliefs that he held for hundreds of years and then snapped at last in a way he could never have foreseen. I'm interpreting that as, again, like once he joined that Backland clan, that is what changed his convictions into, instead of being like a peaceful Trell, he then embraced the traditional ways of Trells and their warrior like way. So I think that that's a reference back to the mindset or the convictions or beliefs of this Backland clan that initiated him and he joined. And I get the sense that he believed their way of life, and then one day it all shattered like glass, you know?
Nicely put, sir.
So maybe a mixture of both mentalities then. I'm not sure if the snapped is a reference towards the peaceful trells or for the warrior like clans that he was talking about. But it sounds like these nameless ones were they were within the Backland clan, is what I've gathered, because they seem to be they had predicted the events of this months prior. They foresaw some moment, and my guess is the destruction of this Trell town. So the urban Trells essentially were massacred in some way, shape, or form, is what I'm getting. And so all they have left are the rural Trell clans that have probably taken in some of the Trells that had survived from the town. And the Trells from the town, all they seek are vengeance. That is all that they want. But the nameless ones are basically saying, no, vengeance will be held by one. And that one is Mappo. Mappo is the one that is chosen to get this vengeance on whoever it is. Again, that's not elaborated in any way, shape, or form, but somebody destroyed this town. Mappo is been tasked or burdened, forced to get vengeance upon these people. So it isn't until Mappo is in the in his second memory. He has like two memories. The first memory being his initiation to the clan and his beliefs. The second memory is he's walking and he's seeing the town all burnt and ruined and bodies littered everywhere and all that kind of stuff. And when he meets the nameless one in the center of the city, is what I'm assuming, she tells him that he must attend, but never finishes, because Mappo interrupts her. And here's where my thought is. Here's the big thing. Maybe attend to Icarium. I'm not sure who else it could be, because it also seems like Mappo has to attend until whoever, Icarium, comes back to this place. So not until Icarium returns to this place can Mappo seek vengeance. But my question is how did a Jag Hut become intertwined with the Trell? Is it possible that this taken and destruction of the Trell towns were committed by Jag Hut? And that is why Mappo is burdened with memories, but unable to tell Icarium. Is it possible? You remember Reyes? How he would enslave? So, and again, Jag Hut is one of the elder races. So we've got the Talan, the Jag Hut, and the Fork Rule Assail or something like that. They were all fighting with each other. So is it possible that the Jag Hut are the ones responsible for destroying the city? So being that Icarium doesn't have his memories, Mappo is in this position where he can't really do anything and is forced to attend to Icarium until Icarium comes back to this place and his memories are returned. and then he can get vengeance.
That is pretty deep, man. But it's
I'm sure
awesome.
it's not fucking right by any shape of the mean, because like I want them to be I mean I feel like they're friends. I feel like they're good companions. I mean they've been walking around for centuries, and this just goes to show how patient Mappo has been. Regardless of if it's a Carium or not, the key is a Carium. A Carium does have to come back to this town, and I think that's when he gets his memories back. And that is when Mappo can do whatever he needs to do to avenge the Trells.
That was very well crafted, and I can see it. That was about the only thing that I will. It was not to the level that you went, but when he had like when they said he had to attend or whatever, like that made sense to me that it was Icarium, but that was about as far as my brain got.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like on the tip of my tongue, you know? Like I feel like there's definitely a lot there, and I feel like this section reveals a lot about Mappo, but like I said, it isn't until like you literally piece every sentence together. And that's why I wrote so damn much about this section. But yeah, it just it made me love this section so much more, because you get an understanding of Mappo, as to who he was, and you can counterpoint that to what he is now.
I like where your theory's going here, and listening to you talk, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. The only other thing that at the end, when Mappo has the thought about, what about sweet vengeance, friend? And before that, they were having a conversation about how Mappo felt manipulated, and then got the image of Iskarol Pust in his mind. And then, Icarium's like, nah, I don't fucking care about that anymore. I feel like Mappo knows, or at least has an idea who's manipulating him. But I kind of feel bad for Mappo here, because it seems like, again, he's been waiting for centuries for Icarium to go back to his home, or Trelltown that we mentioned. Or at least that's what I'm assuming, because it sounds like when he does, that's when he'll be able to get his vengeance for himself and for the Trell. So that's probably the piece that I'm most confident on.
I like it. I like it a lot.
But outside of that, going back to the Shaik, the possibilities multiplied every time they talked about Shaik, the whirlwind, or the prophecies. And then together they were creating their own confusion. I think it's interesting that Mappo wonders who it's serving to have all this confusion about Shaik. And I get a feeling that this, like our characters, is indeed the author's audience, or in the intended for us, which is likely the reason why we have this pie theory. So the characters in the book itself are just as confused about Shaik as we are.
Still think she's coming back.
No, that's fine. There's definitely some allusion to this, but her coming back and ascended, does that count?
I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess I didn't. I don't think I specified how she'd be coming back. I just said she'd be back. That story wasn't done with her.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fair.
I mean, you thought she was just dead and done, and that was it. Was basically my take on it, right?
Yeah, but I feel like that all depends if the book was real or not. Right? Because if the book is real, then Dryjana was released, and therefore, I guess what is it that we're taking a pie in the face for? Is it?
I guess we're gonna have to go back and listen.
Is it Dryjana being released, or is it Shaik not being dead?
It's funny we don't even remember exactly what it was.
I feel like it's centered around those two things.
Yeah.
So maybe we're both getting pies. Maybe we're both right and wrong.
You said that was a possibility.
Yeah. Maybe Jan is just excited that two of us get pies in the face. Got two pies picked out. No, he said one. So yeah, I guess I don't know. If Shaik has ascended, and I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. I'll count that.
All right, I'll take your pity vote.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, I'm going on the fact that Icarium is basically saying that her death may have been necessary, because no mortal could have commanded all this power. So,
well, I mean, that's maybe I didn't use those exact words, but I remember saying that her death was just all part of the plan. Like that's why she wasn't worried about it.
But I think what this is alluding to is that no mortal, and Shaik apparently was some type of mortal, wouldn't have been able to command all this power. So I think something else. I think I think the apocalypse got started by Rouleau. I think that he started the apocalypse. Whether that was in unison with Shaik or not, I don't know. But I think he's the one that like called to action the actual doing of the rebellion.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if I've got anything to refute that right now.
Fair, fair. But yeah, I guess that's the only thing that I had for uh that particular section. I really liked it. I really there was so much to take out of it. I feel like I have so much of a clearer picture on Mappo and potentially the reason why Mappo and Akarium are journeying together. But yeah,
I really like where that's going, where you went with that. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out for sure.
yeah. But yeah, take us home.
Wrap this one up. All right. They rode down the ancient road, chased by the wind. Even the Grawl horse was exhausted. Fiddler had no options, no answer to what was happening around them. To the right somewhere there was a battle happening. He could hear it, though he couldn't see it. Though they were close, he had no desire to go look and see how close they were. He thought staying on the road was all that was keeping them alive. The fight he could hear was not men, but animals and beasts. He rode the horse with both his hands on his crossbow loaded with a flamer bolt. He knew he couldn't drop his weapon, as it would engulf them in fire. He knew he couldn't continue on like this much longer. He had looked back and saw Crocus and Apsalar, their horses beyond exhausted. They would run until they dropped dead, which would be soon. His horse went sideways, screaming. Fiddler was covered in hot liquid. He wiped it from his eyes and thought something had gotten close, and something else had kept it from getting closer. What the fuck was going on out there? Crocus yelled as he was ejected from his horse, and its legs gave way. Fiddler dropped a hand from the crossbow and reined his horse in and yelled back to drop the tents. They were on the freshest of the spare horses. Absalar said it didn't matter. They needed to stop. He looked out into the storm. He could hear the battle getting closer. Whatever was holding back was giving ground. 4 large shapes appeared. Fiddler didn't fuck around. He shot and fired in their direction, lighting them up like an old Christmas tree soaked in gasoline. He reloaded, not looking at what he grabbed. He could see more shapes now. He recognized them. Asanthan L, divers and soul taken. A huge shape swept over them. Crocus was quickly looking for his sword while Apsalar had daggers in hand. He was about to shout to her where the enemies were, but then he saw what she saw. 3 Grawl hunters, a dozen paces away, and lances lowered. Fid couldn't shoot at them this close, so he watched them get closer. Bear leapt out of the storm, ripping one rider off his horse and biting him in half. Apsalar went after the other 2, driving her daggers up into the riders and taking both out simultaneously. She tucked and rolled as there was a 4th rider Fiddler had missed. She sprang up and was sitting behind the rider, with her arm closing around his throat, her other hand digging fingers into his eyes and pulling his head back as she opened his throat for him. Fiddler took a hit to the face from something big and scaly. He landed with broken ribs in the thick of the battle and covered his head with his hands. His ankle was crushed, and he heard his horse scream, but not in pain. Terror and rage instead. Though Fiddler was in pain, he was satisfied momentarily when he heard a hoof connect with something fleshy. Something large hit the ground next to Fiddler, and the battle died out. The scene was a nightmare. He saw his horse standing near his crossbow, the bolt missing. Apsalar stood over one of the Grawl she had stabbed. He had not died quite yet, and was coughing up blood. The big bear that took out the first Grawl let out a roar, and then they watched it run away. Fiddler thought it wasn't a good sign if it was running away. Apsalar backed towards him, and Crocus unsheathed his sword. They saw what approached. Rats. 1. Hundreds. Thousands. Yet 1. Fiddler knew who this was. He yelled for Apsalar to get a cusser bolt. She said it was too late, and there wasn't enough. Fiddler said it wasn't for them. It wasn't for the rats. It was for the 3 of them. He knew this diver. It was Grillin, known as the Tide of Madness. From Eganton, another voice called out and told Grillin to leave them. It was a very tall man. He could see it was Jag. Grillin hesitated, and another figure appeared, short and squat. This one was a Trell. The Jag said Grillin's prey had fled, and these people do not follow the trail of hands. He also now protects them. The rats hissed in protest. The Jag said not to test his patience. Grillin retreated, and the rats were gone. The Jag asked if Fid would live. He said he would have to, if only to understand what had just happened, and he felt like he should know who they were. The Trell shrugged and asked if he could stand. Fiddler said he would try. He did not make it to his feet before he lost consciousness.
Fucking epic section, man.
Yeah, it was a hell of an end to the chapter for sure.
Yeah, it definitely was. I really enjoyed just the growing mystery around like what was like hiding or lurking within the sandstorm, you know? I could just imagine that they're in some eye of the storm, right? And all around you could just hear this battle going on between the Divers and the Soul Taken, you know, and you just get like flecks of shadows and things here and there and screeches and clawing, and it was really good how sensory it was, you know, like I could almost put myself in their shoes.
Yeah, and that's got to make it more like I feel like that would be more stressful. Like you can't see what's going on, but you just hear it and you hear how close it is.
Yeah, yeah, very true. Definitely makes you feel uneasy.
Yeah, and I liked. I mean, obviously, we're seeing more of Absalar's skills that she's retained from her days of being possessed, and using those effectively.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of that. I'm really starting to grow to like Absalar, and it's weird because even as I'm saying Absalar's name, like part of my mind is like, no, that's sorry, you know, and
Yeah,
it's slowly going away. Like I don't feel like I refer to her as sorry anymore, and I think that just goes to show you that her character has changed. You know, I think that's a good representation of that. You know what I mean? Like as she, you know, goes and discovers this new talent, so to speak, she's left behind the old Absalar. Like instead of it being against her will, it is for her will. So just
yeah, she's like calling these. I don't know, maybe that's the right way to put it, but yeah, she knows what she's doing. It's not an accident.
right. Yeah, it's not against her control, which I think is funny that the name is sorry, right? Like sorry, I'm just using your body to do what I want.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
else in here? I think the Custer bolt was the same thing as like the flame bolt, if I
I think
remember right.
so. Yeah, there's some type of explosive. I'm more curious about Graylin or whatever. Because it sounds like he's controlling a ton of rats, is he not?
That's what I got. Yeah.
But aren't rats part of Shadow Throne? Isn't that what Mr. Poost made it seem like?
I don't remember his ramblings, I guess.
Gotcha.
Could have been. I know he wanted the spiders dead. I remember that.
Right. But do you
But
think
yeah,
that's yeah.
this guy,
Do-
he's going to be interesting to find out about, and especially with his like nickname.
yeah, the
He
tide
must
of
be
madness.
he must be like crazy. I don't know.
Or do you think that it has something to do with like plague and rats? You know, I mean, the whole bubonic plague, wasn't that something that was basically derived from rats? So would that have any correlation? I mean, I don't know anything about the bubonic plague, but don't you go a little bit crazy? Or didn't you? I
Yeah,
don't remember.
I don't know.
Fair.
I don't remember learning that much about it. And then Eganton, I assume that Eganton must be a location. I don't know if, is that a continent, a city, country? I don't know.
From what I understood from the first book is that it is the old name for seven cities.
I don't remember that being mentioned before, to be honest. Was it in Gardens?
It was, yeah, it was like in one of the beginning chapters.
You have a much better memory than I do.
I just remember it was a very weird word.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. But it wasn't sticking out, but now it is.
yeah, I guess I'm curious as to know more about that, the Grylan, and you know, it seems like there's two different objectives here. There's the Path of Hands for the Divers and the Soul Taken. Well, there's three things really. There's the Path of Hands. There's the Azath House in Tremolor, and then there's the just had it.
Apocalypse.
Yeah, the Apocalypse. So I feel like there's like three different like storylines kind of happening. And at first I thought they were related in some way, shape, or form, but don't think that I think they all serve a different purpose.
maybe they'll somehow tie together towards the end. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, for now, it seems like they're branching off into these different things, but
Yeah,
yeah, I guess it was a very action oriented section, and I don't know if I necessarily have a ton to point out. I think that I would say 100% that you and I agree that it is it is Icarium and Mappo that has basically linked up with Fiddler, Apsalar, and Crocus.
yeah. I'm like 99% there. There's still like 1% of me that has a little bit of hesitation, but I don't know why, because like how many other Jag and Trells are out traveling together? Like I can't imagine
I mean, none that
any.
we've been told, you know. I
Right,
feel like it would be suspicious to have it be somebody else, you know, like to have it be somebody that you don't have a relationship with. But we also know that Iscariel Poost sent them on this journey, you know. What they're particularly doing, I'm not sure, but I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with Tremolor, because Icarium makes a point to Grylan that they're not seeking the path of hands, so leave them the fuck alone.
right. Yeah, yeah, I'm like very, very mostly confident it's got to be Icarium and Mappo.
Yeah,
But
I'm excited to see where that goes too. You
I
know.
know I'm excited to read this next chapter. It'll be a pretty big one, 50-ish pages.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot to cover there, I'm sure. And I know you've mentioned before that you feel like the book has been great so far, but now it really feels like it's kind of getting into its groove and taking off
Yeah.
some.
Yeah. Things are no longer established. I mean, things are already established, is what I mean. So now they're just kind of building off of that. You know.
Right.
So we're entering what I would imagine is the thick of it, the beginning of the thick. Now that
Yeah.
everything's been established, the apocalypse is upon us, like that started. I'm assuming that'll probably continue. You know, I would imagine that that's probably a reoccurring theme throughout the series. I would imagine that if we ever come back to the Seven Cities, or in the next book, there'll probably be mention of the Seven Cities. So, and the revolt.
There's only one. There's only one way to know for sure, and that's to read and get to the next book at some point.
Yep. Yeah. I would imagine. I mean, we should be there by like end of June, maybe beginning of July, if not
For the
sooner.
next book.
Yeah.
Dude, it's January.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. You're right. Yeah. We've been doing this since October. So shit. Yeah. Maybe around
I
May,
would.
April, May, maybe end of March.
Well, what we've got. Well, I guess maybe you're right, because yeah, we've got about what 16 chapters left. So well, that's about 4 months, I guess. Yeah, April, May, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Which will be cool. It'll be cool.
It'll come up. It'll come up quick.
Yeah. It will be. It will come up quick. And then we'll have 2 books down, man. Starting the third one.
I know I'm excited for that one already, but I feel like I shouldn't be, because we were so excited for this one. I don't want to like. I know I'm not going to be let down by it, but I don't want to get in my head that I feel like I'm rushing to get this one done to get to the next one.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I feel like we felt this about Gardens of the Moon at about this point. We were like excited to get on to the next one. And I
Yeah.
don't necessarily think that I mean, yes, it's excitement, but I also think it's kind of like, I think about Ganoes and Whiskey Jack, and I want to know how all those guys are doing. Animander Rake, like those are characters that we've enjoyed reading about, and to go without them is a bit weird, and it would be nice to get back to them, I guess.
I guess I haven't thought about them a whole lot, but it'll be, yeah. I want to see what they're up to for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm probably going to spend my morning reading this next chapter.
I will probably tomorrow afternoon after work. I will probably get an hour or so reading in. So I probably won't finish it tomorrow, but I'll get started on it.
Hell yeah. Well, hell yeah.
Well,
Sweet.
should we wrap this guy up?
Let's wrap it up.
All right. Well, it was a hell of a conversation here today. It was a lot of fun, a good chapter. So I'm sure the next one's going to be right up there as well. So I guess don't forget to check us out online, YouTube, Twitter. Check out our Patreon. Am I missing anything?
The ones that we're on, no.
Yeah, I
We
guess
don't do
those are
much
kind
with
of the active
Instagram or
ones.
Facebook.
Yeah, that's true. I know Yeah, we're going to start reading this next chapter, but I know we had talked about next week doing our second half of Vasquez, which will just be us now. Christian not be able to make it on for that. I know A Perfect Organism. They are making a movie, so I think that's what he's tied up with and why he doesn't have time. Or at least that's what I'm telling myself to feel a little bit better about it, because I'm kind of bummed about that. I was looking forward to talking to him, but that's a pretty big project to make a movie. And then hopefully the week after that, I'm trying to get the date nailed down for January 28th, but hopefully we'll be able to talk with V Castro about the book itself, and then we'll have that one all wrapped up and done. We'll just have to wait and see what I hear from her, and what we can make work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, yeah, it's been a great episode. Pleasure talking to you as always. So,
Yeah, up another pretty lengthy one here, pretty close to 3 hours.
yep, so it's gonna be. That's okay. That's all
Yeah,
right.
that is fine.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess enjoy the rest of your night, sir.
You too. We'll talk soon.
Later, man.
Bye.